Before we begin, I'd appreciate it if you could hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. The thunder rolled softly outside that Wednesday evening, creating a rhythm that once made our apartment feel like a sanctuary. But not that night. That night, the atmosphere felt heavy, suffocating, like something toxic had seeped into the walls while I wasn't paying attention. I was chopping vegetables for dinner, trying to ignore the uncomfortable silence filling the space behind me. Lisa stood near the counter, her posture rigid, shoulders tense like coiled wire. It was subtle, but I'd been with her long enough. Long enough that ignoring it felt impossible. "Lisa," I said softly, setting down the knife and turning toward her. "You've barely said 2 words since you got home. What's going on?" She didn't meet my eyes, just stared at the cabinet in front of her. "My head's killing me." That was it. 3 words. No warmth, no eye contact, just a dismissive statement like I was some stranger who'd crossed a boundary. I stepped back slightly, confused. "All right," I said carefully. "Have you taken anything? Should we?" I said I'm fine. Her tone was sharp now, cutting through the air like glass. I nodded, giving her room to breathe. But after a moment, I tried once more. "You've been off all week. If something's bothering you, we should talk about it. I'm not trying to pressure you, but—" She spun around so fast the dish towel slipped from the counter. "David, not everything revolves around you. Just leave it alone." That one stung. I stared at her, genuinely shocked. Where is this coming from? Maybe I'm exhausted from pretending everything's perfect when it's clearly not. She snapped, her voice rising with each word. "I can't even exist in this place without being interrogated." Interrogated? I took a step closer, keeping my voice level. "Lisa, I asked if you were all right. That's not an interrogation. That's what people who care about each other do." "Oh, spare me the caring husband speech." She laughed bitterly, waving her hand dismissively. "You want me to smile, cook dinner, sit across from you, and pretend like you don't suffocate me every single day?" My jaw tightened. "So now caring about you equals suffocating you?" She laughed again, this time darker. "Because you control everything, David. Even how I'm supposed to feel." That hit something deep inside me. I stood there, heart pounding, watching this woman, my wife, say things that felt rehearsed, like she'd been storing them up, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash them. "Lisa," I said quietly, "if you need space, take it. But don't rewrite our entire history just to justify pushing me away." "I'm not pushing you away," she hissed. "You just don't fit into the version of my future I want anymore." There it was. The truth, raw and unfiltered. The silence that followed felt suffocating. All I could hear was the thunder rumbling outside and the sound of my own breath catching in my throat. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I just nodded slowly and stepped back, like I'd finally understood something I'd been blind to all along. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she demanded it, but because I couldn't lie next to someone who looked at me like that anymore. We'd been married for 6 years. Our condo was almost paid off. 2 decent cars in the garage. Regular dinners with friends on weekends. She worked in advertising in the financial district. I was a high school chemistry teacher. We weren't living large, but we were comfortable. Or so I'd convinced myself. But that moment in our kitchen, that cold stare, those calculated words, that was the first time I truly realized something fundamental had shattered between us. And I had absolutely no idea how deep that fracture would go. The morning after, sunlight filtered through the blinds like nothing catastrophic had happened just hours before. Birds chirped outside as if our kitchen hadn't transformed into a battlefield the previous evening. I was already awake, standing at the edge of the bedroom, fully dressed in my work clothes. Lisa was still buried under the covers, her back turned toward me. She hadn't come to check on me, hadn't even asked if I'd eaten after she'd stormed off. I rubbed my temples and cleared my throat gently. "Morning," I said, trying to sound normal. "I called Dr. Morrison's clinic. They can fit you in tomorrow at 10. Nothing. Just silence. I waited a beat. "Just want to make sure everything's okay with those headaches. You've been complaining about them for weeks." Still nothing. Then the comforter shifted violently, and she shot up like a jack-in-the-box, glaring at me with intensity I'd never seen before. "You what?" I took a small step backward, caught completely off guard. "I scheduled an appointment. Just to be safe." Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "Who gave you permission to do that?" "Permission?" I blinked. "You've been saying you don't feel well. You snapped at me yesterday. Said you were sick." So I did what seemed normal. I called the doctor. She sat up fully now, arms crossed defensively over her chest. You're unbelievable. Because I mentioned a headache, you think you can just start organizing my entire existence. I blinked again, genuinely confused. Lisa, it's a checkup. That's all. You don't have to go if you don't want to. Oh, how generous of you. She sneered, throwing off the covers and getting out of bed. But the real reason you did it? You don't trust me. That's what this is really about, right? What? No. Yes. Her voice cracked, eyes wide with something that looked like panic mixed with rage. You're trying to control me, David. You think if I don't behave the way you expect, you get to manage me like I'm one of your science projects. I held up both hands, palms out. You told me you weren't feeling well. I was trying to help. That's not control. That's concern. She was pacing now, yanking open drawers and slamming them shut with unnecessary force. You know what? You've always been like this. Quiet, reasonable, nice on the surface, but underneath, you're always watching. Always monitoring me like I'm about to do something wrong. My voice dropped lower. Is there something you're trying to hide? She froze mid-step. That did it. Her entire body went rigid. Then her lips curled into something between disgust and barely concealed panic. Unbelievable. Now you think I'm lying? That I'm making it all up? I didn't respond immediately. She grabbed a decorative pillow and hurled it across the room. God, I can't breathe in this apartment anymore. I'm not stopping you from breathing, I said quietly. I made a doctor's appointment because you said you weren't well. She turned on me, pointing a trembling finger directly at my chest. No, you scheduled it without asking. That's the difference, David. I exhaled slowly, trying desperately not to escalate things. You're right. I didn't ask. Maybe I should have. But I didn't think permission was necessary when you said you were in pain. She stormed past me into the bathroom, yanking the door open so hard it rattled on its hinges. You're trying to paint yourself as the reasonable one, huh? The good guy? But it's all manipulation. I'm not your patient, David. The door slammed. I stood there alone, staring at the wood grain of that bathroom door, wondering how we'd gotten to this point. Just weeks ago, we were binge-watching that crime documentary series on the couch, Lisa curled up beside me, her laughter making me forget every frustration from work. Now, she was accusing me of manipulation for booking a simple doctor's appointment. I glanced at the framed photo on our dresser, us in Portland last spring, hiking near the waterfalls. Her cheeks flushed from the cool air, her smile so genuine it practically radiated warmth. I used to know her like I knew my own heartbeat. But this wasn't her. Or maybe it was, and I was only just now seeing it clearly. A few minutes later, she emerged from the bathroom, bag slung over her shoulder, face still damp from washing whatever mask she'd been wearing. I'll be back later, she snapped, brushing past me toward the front door. Where are you? She turned in the doorway, eyes glassy with unshed tears. I'm not reporting every single movement to you, David. And with that, she left. I stayed in the bedroom for a while, letting the silence settle around me like dust after an explosion. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was worried, confused. And beneath that confusion, something colder had started forming. Doubt. Not just about the argument, but about what had truly changed in her. Or maybe about what she'd been hiding all along. The gathering. 5 days passed. Lisa never rescheduled the doctor's appointment, and I didn't mention it again. By Saturday evening, we were both pretending like nothing had happened. Rachel and Jason, our closest couple friends, were hosting a small gathering at their house across town. Just grilled steaks, wine, music, laughter, a break from the tension. Or so I hoped. Lisa dressed carefully that evening. That green dress I hadn't seen in months. Hair falling loose over her shoulders, subtle makeup highlighting her features. She looked stunning. Not for me, though. That much was clear. We arrived at their place around 7. Rachel hugged us both warmly. Jason gave me his usual friendly handshake. It all felt routine, comfortable. But the moment we stepped into their backyard, something in Lisa shifted. I noticed it immediately. The way her smile brightened just a fraction too much, like she was performing. David, grab yourself a drink, she said casually, brushing past me toward the patio where Jason stood laughing with Rachel. I poured myself a beer, made polite conversation with Rachel, but I was watching Lisa the entire time. She stood beside Jason, leaning in slightly, laughing a bit too quickly at whatever joke he'd just told. Her hand brushed his arm. Not obviously, not for long. but long enough that it didn't look accidental. I joined them, sliding my arm gently around her waist. She flinched, not dramatically, but her entire posture stiffened for just a second before she took a small step forward, letting my arm fall away naturally. Jason didn't react, but his gaze flicked toward Lisa, then toward me, before he looked away quickly. Lisa turned to Rachel. "Do you still have that Pinot Grigio from last time?" Rachel nodded, already heading toward the kitchen. And there we were, just the three of us. I looked at Jason. "How's work been?" "Yeah," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Busy as always." Lisa stepped closer to him. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough. The rest of that evening blurred into wine, smoke from the grill, and background conversation. But every time I looked over, Lisa wasn't near me. She was always near Jason. I watched her laugh at his stories, lean in when he spoke, touch her hair the way she used to with me during our early dating days. Once, while Rachel was refilling drinks, I caught Lisa looking at Jason. Not just looking, watching. A gaze that lingered half a second too long. He looked back quickly, then away, like they both knew exactly what the other was thinking but were pretending otherwise. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and handed Lisa her wine glass like I hadn't noticed a single thing. But I had. Every touch, every flinch, every glance. I felt the entire evening like I was watching a scene unfold without me in it. And when we finally got back in the car, Lisa hummed softly to herself, scrolling through her phone. Not once did she look at me. And still, I said nothing. But inside, something was shifting. Quietly. Permanently. The investigator. It was a Thursday afternoon when I found Marcus, a friend of a colleague. The kind of person who blended into crowds and asked questions without ever sounding like he was interrogating anyone. Former detective, now running a quiet investigation firm above a laundromat in downtown Seattle. Nameplate slightly crooked. Coffee smelling burnt. Carpet older than most of my students. But he got results. "Tell me exactly what you need," he said, tapping a worn leather notebook. I hesitated for just a moment. "I think my wife's hiding something from me. And it's not just an affair." Marcus didn't even blink. "You have a name?" "Jason," I said quietly. "Jason Mitchell. He's married. He's close to us." Marcus nodded slowly, scribbling notes. "No problem. I'll keep it clean. You'll get photos, timestamps, audio if possible. Nothing illegal, nothing messy. Just the facts." The facts. That was all I wanted. 10 days later, I found myself back in that cramped little office. Marcus didn't waste time with pleasantries, just gestured toward a chair and turned his laptop screen toward me. "Listen to this," he said simply. The recording crackled slightly before settling. Wind, distant traffic, then Lisa's voice, shaky and tense. "I'm late. Like really, really late. I bought 4 tests, Jason. All positive." I went completely still. Jason's voice came next, lower and strained. "Are you absolutely sure they're accurate?" "I'm standing in a hospital parking lot with ultrasound images in my purse," she said, voice trembling. "Yeah, I'm sure." Jason muttered something under his breath I couldn't make out. Then silence. Just ambient noise. Cars passing. Someone coughing in the distance. Lisa again, quieter this time. "I don't know what to do." "Does David know?" Jason asked. "No." She cut him off immediately. "And he's not going to. Not yet, anyway." Marcus paused the audio there. I stared at the screen, the progress bar barely halfway through, but I'd already heard more than enough. I couldn't speak at first. My jaw was clenched tight, fists balled on my knees. Marcus waited respectfully. Then he leaned forward slightly. "There's more. She tells him she's going to list you as the father. Says it's simpler that way. For insurance, hospital documentation, her reputation." I closed my eyes tightly. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. I was dealing with premeditation. A calculated plan. She'd made a conscious decision to deceive me. Not in some heat-of-the-moment mistake, but with cold, logical precision. "She listed me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded. Said it straight to him. "David's name goes on everything. It's cleaner. He won't question it if I handle it correctly." I pressed a hand over my mouth, fighting back something between a bitter laugh and a groan of disbelief. This wasn't just an affair anymore. It was construction. She was building an elaborate lie, brick by brick. Marcus slid a folder across the desk. Inside were still photos. Lisa and Jason leaning against a car in the hospital parking lot, her hand resting protectively on her stomach, his face pale and drawn. "You okay?" Marcus asked quietly. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I am. Because now, for the first time in weeks, I had absolute clarity. The story was no longer half-written, and I knew exactly how this chapter had to end. The hospital visit. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet deception. I stepped through the automatic sliding doors just after 9 in the morning, hands steady in my coat pockets, heartbeat slow and controlled. No rage, no trembling, just purpose. At the front desk, a young nurse looked up with a polite, practiced smile. How can I help you today? I'm here regarding my wife, I said calmly. Lisa Harper. She had some tests done recently. The nurse typed for a moment on her keyboard. Are you listed as immediate family? I'm her husband, David Harper. She hesitated, fingers hovering uncertainly over the keys. I'll need to verify your identity. I slid my driver's license across the counter. She studied it carefully, glanced back at the computer screen, then back at me. You're listed as the father, she said quietly, almost uncertainly. There it was. Printed reality. Cold. Flat. Official. Yes, I replied evenly. That's correct. She nodded slowly, still looking uncertain. One moment, please. She disappeared down a hallway. I stood there, watching a janitor push a mop cart past me like nothing in the entire world had fundamentally shifted. A few minutes later, she returned holding a thin manila folder. This is all I can release under your authorization, she said carefully. Thank you, I said. A doctor stepped out beside her, a man in his mid-50s with calm eyes and practiced warmth radiating from him. Mr. Harper, he said with a soft smile, extending his hand. Congratulations. I took his hand firmly. Thank you. The words felt strange in my own mouth. She's still very early, he continued professionally. But everything looks stable so far. We'll schedule the next ultrasound soon. Of course, I said evenly. He nodded again. Try to be there for her during this time. These early weeks can be quite overwhelming emotionally. I will, I said, because technically, that statement was still true in its own way. The nurse turned the folder toward me. You can review these documents here if you'd like. I opened it slowly, carefully. Printed forms. Intake notes. Emergency contact information. And right there, in black ink. Father, David Harper. Not Jason. Me. My name. My life. My future, rewritten without my knowledge or consent. I closed the folder carefully, as if it might somehow bite me. I appreciate your help, I said to the nurse. She smiled, visibly relieved. Of course. Take care. The doctor gave one last encouraging nod. Take care of your family. I intend to, I answered quietly. Then I turned and walked down that long hallway, each footstep echoing too loudly, like the building itself was listening to every move I made. I didn't feel anger in that moment. I felt precision. A trap had been carefully constructed around me, and I had just stepped over it without getting caught. The failed seduction. That evening, our bedroom looked like something staged for a magazine photo shoot. Soft lighting, warm shadows, vanilla-scented candles flickering on both nightstands. Lisa stood near the bed wearing silk the color of deep burgundy. I hadn't seen that nightgown in years. She glanced at me with a soft, calculated smile. Hey. I stood in the doorway, slowly unbuttoning my shirt cuffs. Hey. She walked over to the nightstand, adjusting one of the candles like its exact placement mattered. You were quiet during dinner. Long day, I said simply. She paused, nodding like she accepted that explanation. I thought maybe we could just be us tonight. Like we used to be. Her voice was low, intentional, seductive. She stepped closer, and I caught a trace of that perfume she only wore on special occasions. The one that used to make me stop mid-sentence when she walked past. You look nice, I said, keeping my tone carefully neutral. Her fingers touched my chest lightly, trailing upward toward my collar. I was really hoping you'd say that. I met her eyes directly. They were soft, calculated. She leaned in slowly, her lips grazing my jawline. It's been too long, David. I stepped back slightly, just enough to create space between us. I'm tired, I said quietly but clearly. Her face didn't change immediately. Then she blinked, lips parting slightly, like I'd just spoken in a completely foreign language. Oh, I've had a lot on my mind lately. Work? She asked. I nodded. Among other things. She wrapped her arms around herself, that silk nightgown shifting with the movement. You've been distant lately, David. You think so? She didn't answer immediately. I walked over to the dresser, took off my watch, and set it down with a soft metallic click. Her reflection in the mirror looked frozen, uncertain. She tried again, her voice lower and more rehearsed. I miss us, David. Don't you? I turned around slowly, leaning back against the dresser. You miss the version of me that didn't ask questions. She gave a short, uncomfortable laugh. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't reply. She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, the mattress creaking slightly under her weight. I'm trying here, she said, vulnerability creeping into her voice. I'm lighting candles. I'm showing up. What else do you want from me? I looked at her for a long, measured moment. What did I want? Honesty? That was too far gone now. Answers? I already had them. Right now, all I wanted was for her to sit in the discomfort she'd created instead of hiding behind perfume and mood lighting. You don't need to try, I said gently. Not tonight. Her shoulders slumped visibly. So you're rejecting me now? I'm not rejecting you, I said carefully. I'm just tired. She looked away, and there it was, the first real crack in her carefully constructed armor. Not rage, not manipulation, just genuine uncertainty. The same woman who'd been so confident, who'd worn betrayal like a second skin, was now genuinely rattled by one simple word. No. She rose from the bed slowly. I thought maybe we could reset somehow. Go back to how things were before. I tilted my head slightly. When exactly do you think things changed? She stared at me, then looked down at the candle beside her as if it might provide an answer she couldn't find. I turned toward the bathroom. Good night, Lisa. As I stepped out of the room, I didn't look back. And behind me, the candlelight flickered against the silence she'd created for herself.